you're the protector, the provider. You just eat all this stuff. At some point, man, you can do that for a while, but at some point it boils to the top and it's got to come out. So you'd be much better served to work with someone and just let it out, let it out.
Thanks for being here.
Good. Pleasure. I'm glad Chris
Yeah.
connected us up.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I love what you're doing and the mission that you're on to really help people and kind of take ownership of it, right? So when I'm looking at what you're doing, the thing that stands out the most to me is it's not a complaint first mentality. It's not like, hey, this is what I'm seeing that's wrong. Let's argue and complain about all the stuff that's not happening that's right. Let's start helping each other first. And then while we're at it, let's also step up and make everyone around us better. Right? It's more about action than complaint.
100%. Yeah, like it's odd when this whole thing first started. It was just go help. That was it. I didn't care. It didn't matter what it was, who it was. We're going to feed whoever, right? You know, with all the political stuff going on right now in the country, in the world, like none of that stuff matters when there's people in the worst situation of their lives. And it was life. It was a life-changing experience for us. The process has been a crazy learning experience, but it's so many things have been, so many doors have opened up, so many conversations that I've had with people that probably should have never happened. It feels like there's somebody guiding us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So take me back a little bit to kind of how this whole experience started for you. I guess that would really start with really the experience of the hurricane itself, right? And then kind of grew from there.
Sure. Yeah, man. So I was actually out of town whenever it hit. And, since I moved away from Myrtle Beach, I quit paying attention to hurricanes. And I was down in Alabama and heard that it was coming, almost left in the middle of the night to come home, which would have been a disaster. And then I called my wife the next morning. She's like, we've had trees falling down. Then I started looking at the news and that happened on a Friday night, Saturday. So I started working to get supplies for one of our shops in Asheville. So I go to Georgia on Monday. We pick up half a dozen generators and propane and fuel and ice and all that stuff, carried to Asheville and asked, hey, we want to help. Where can we go? And they said Swananoa. And I didn't know what to do or how we wanted to help. I'm sorry, man. Didn't know how we wanted to help. And so we just started by, I wanted to do something that was comforting for people, which was, for me, it was food. I love to cook. I have fond memories of, the dinners and stuff at grandma's house. And so I decided to cook. We had absolutely nothing. I had one cooler and one table. So over the next 24 hours, we found somewhere to go. And my wife and I went and procured everything we needed, from tents to tables to griddles and food and banquet stuff, and started prepping food. And we were supposed to go to a church in Swananoa on Thursday, and Wednesday night about 9:00, they called me and they're like, we don't have room for you. And I'm like, oh, wonderful. What do I do here? So I got back on a Facebook group, found this apartment complex that said, hey, please come to us. It's full of single mothers, elderly, folks on Social Security, the disabled. And I was raised by a single mother on welfare. My mother passed away in a type of environment like this where she was trying to survive on Social Security. So it felt like home as soon as we got there. And we met a lady that reminded me so much of my mom. She was in an electric wheelchair. It hadn't been charged in nearly a week. We show up with generators, so we were able to charge her wheelchair. But we just started feeding people, man. We had no idea what we were doing. We just jumped into action. And then we did that Thursday, Friday. Saturday, I told my wife I wanted to do breakfast on Saturday and Sunday. So we come home Friday night exhausted. We start prepping food. We go out. I'm shopping. She's washing all the pots and pans and buffet stuff, all that kind of thing. 2:00 in the morning, we wrap up. We go to bed, and at 4, we're back on the road headed up there. And I could remember, like, driving up the road, just kind of nodding off and sleeping. I could remember my mother always telling me as a child that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always right. And that just resonated with me as we were doing it. So we prepared breakfast that day and dinner, and did the same thing on Sunday. And then we got normal jobs as well. So what we would do is we would go back up. We would go to Chick-fil-A or like Papa John's or something and buy pizzas. and sandwiches and take up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we took sandwiches up that Tuesday, and we met a retired firefighter that was disabled. And he comes out and he gets a sandwich and some chips and stuff, goes in and eats and walks back out. And you could tell he was getting emotional. He couldn't even say anything. He just looked at us and tapped his chest like this, which said all I needed to hear, right? And then we go back that Thursday with pizza, and we're passing it out in this apartment complex. And a lady's like, "Why are you doing this for us?" I was like, "Because my mom would be disappointed if I wasn't," right? Like we were fortunate. We had one tree fall. We were out of power for 5 days. These people weren't going to have water for months. And I reached out to a friend of mine. I was like, "Hey, man, I need help. I need to take showers up to these folks." And this one friend just wrote a check to buy a half a dozen portable showers. And so we started taking showers up there. And since it was just on the grass, we had eco-friendly soaps and shampoos. And it just kind of went on from there. And then we met this another group of people, and it came from the same thing. We're invited to come to a church. They cancel on us, and we show up in Fairview, which was just down the stream from Craigtown. If you remember in the storm, there was like 13 people from one family that passed away, and it was just downstream from that. And we go there, and this time we've got a trailer, we've got a truck full of stuff, and we've collected sleeping bags and warm clothing and all that. And we show up on this piece of property that the home had been washed away. And we just set up and start feeding volunteers. The volunteers were there just to clean up, and they were from all over the country. There were people there with heavy equipment that had came down from Kentucky and Ohio. They brought their own equipment. They brought their own fuel, all that stuff. And we met two sisters, Jackie and Cynthia. And these two ladies changed not only my life, but many others. 73, 74 years old. Cynthia, a week before the storm, had hip replacement surgery. Where they lived was the property we were set up on. The creek is typically 20 foot wide and 12 inches deep. When the water came through there, it was about 200 yards wide, 8 foot deep. There was a sawmill upstream that hit their double wide, a log, hits their double wide, knocks it off the foundation. It's going down this raging river in the middle of the night. It splits apart. These two elderly ladies end up on a mattress going down this river that they claim is 80 miles an hour. A quarter of a mile or half a mile, I don't remember which one, before the waterfall, they end up in a debris pile for 2 days and 2 nights while trees and cars and everything is slamming into them. I can't imagine how terrifying that would be. Before they get found, cut out, helicoptered out. When we met Cynthia, she had gangrene in her from her, the surgery from being in the water. And Jackie shows up to help dig her neighbors out. And she comes back, and I've got a picture of her, and she's got a folded American flag, like from a service member's funeral. And it's in a plastic bag. And it's full of mud and sand and dirt. All that lady cared about was finding who that belonged to. Like, she had lost everything she had ever worked for. And that's all she cared about, was finding who this flag belonged to. And then about 2 months after meeting Jackie and Cynthia, we got a handwritten thank you card from them. And Jackie was apologizing to us that it took so long to get the thank you card out. Like, we did nothing. I mean, we just show up and feed people. We did absolutely nothing. To me, that she's the hero. So that's kind of where my tagline, neighbors helping neighbors, came from, because that's all it was. That's all I saw was, if it wasn't for volunteers and people that just showed up to do something, there would have been a lot more tragedy in this. And, we see it everywhere with the fires in the Carolinas right now, the fires that we had out in California. Obviously, hurricanes don't stop, the tornadoes that just hit the Midwest. So there's certainly a need for what we're doing. But I just felt called to do more, man. So we started the nonprofit in November. And like I said earlier, the doors that have opened up and the things that have happened have just been unbelievable. And I can't think they're coincidence, right? That these things have happened.
Yeah, I strongly agree. And it's an amazing story. And I can't even imagine that's probably one of countless things that you've experienced that are, similar in format. And I think for a lot of people, we get almost blind to the fact that this still happens, right? So, unfortunately, we live in such a way that there's always something else going on.
100%.
And we hear these tragedies about, hey, the hurricane came through, caused X, Y, and Z damage. So many people lost their lives. They lost everything they had. And then the next week there was a fire. The next week there was a tornado. And then we move on because for me, I'm up in New York. It's not in my peripheral vision all the time, right? There's always something else happening, or we get consumed with the day-to-day life. And, I think it's an important reminder that all of us need to really just pause for a second and realize that there is so much going on around us. And what's the most important part? Right? I think, for us, we are super busy with, again, we've got family, we've got work, we've got all the other stuff we put on our to-do list. And we tend to forget, because it's not obvious in our face, that there are so many things going on around us in our community. If we pause for a second and really put our problems into perspective, where could we show up? Right? Where could we use what we have? And even if it's not an overflowing abundance, right? Even if we only have a little bit of time to offer, or even just an ear, a shoulder, right? A little bit of help can go a long way, I think, when we all just show up and offer what we got. And I love that about your story is it's not this grand, amazing thing where you immediately raised a bunch of money and got some whatever. Like, you literally just showed up to help. And then because you showed up to help with an open heart, like, all of the people who benefit from this, and now it's created this rising tide where now you've got a non-for-profit, now you've got some momentum behind you where now there's a little bit of positive push forward toward this. And hey, here we are having this conversation to raise it even higher, right? So what does this look like for you? What's the next step from here?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And so I take a little bit of a step back and kind of give you the timeline of the nonprofit. So we started it in South Carolina. We filed November of 2020. I'm sorry, November 20th, 2024. I immediately reach out to Operation Barbecue Relief, who's doing the same thing I want to do, but on a massive scale. I mean, these guys are huge. They're all over the country. And I talked to the CEO, Stan Hayes, and I was like, hey, man, this is what I'm doing. Can you help me out? He's like, sure. And he talked to me for an hour and a half. This guy, he did not have to do that. He talked to me for an hour and a half. He's like, hey, here's what you got. You have to do this. You have to reach out to your local congressman and state representative at the federal level and tell them that you need your 501c3 sooner rather. If not, you're going to wait forever. I reach out to my congressperson and they call me on a Thursday. And they're like, hey, man, why do you need this? I've already talked to the IRS. I'm like, look, I've got donors that want to donate. We need to get back to North Carolina. What can you do? They're like, I'll call you back. I didn't hear back from them. And that following Monday, my 501c3 letter was in the mailbox. 4 days after that, BetterHelp, the online therapy company, signed a contract with me where they didn't give money and I didn't want money from them. They gave us 25 years of therapy to give out to people from these natural disasters, which resonates with me. My mother, my brother, myself, my daughter, we've all struggled with mental health stuff. And that's where I have found this is really medicine for my soul. January 21st of 2024, I was going to end my life. And my wife and my daughter saved me. Then I started focusing on me. I started losing weight, lost about 70 pounds, walked a marathon. I've always wanted to run a marathon. I couldn't run from here to the front door, so I walked one. Did stand-up comedy, went skydiving, kind of that stuff. And then when this hurricane hit and we went and started helping people, that was medicine for my soul. And like I said, I felt called to do more. So once we started the nonprofit, immediately started working on a kitchen because we were doing this out of work vehicles. Like we would come home, unload everything, put the work stuff back in. Like, it was a pain in the neck. So we've got a 36-foot mobile kitchen that should be wrapped up in the next month. It was supposed to be done now, but they've run into some delays. So it'll be wrapped up in the next few weeks. We've ordered all of the equipment to go in it. We're working with the state of South Carolina. We were just approved to hold raffles in the state, so we can run weekly 50-50 raffles and quarterly raffles. Where we found the most help and support is the Harley Davidson biker community. We're working with numerous dealerships across the Carolinas, Tennessee, Virginia. We're actually going to Sturgis in August. We're going to be in Sturgis for a week holding a raffle. We were just approved by the state of South Dakota to hold raffles there. We're really just trying to raise awareness, sign up volunteers, and fundraise. I've had a lot of conversations that, again, people work for years to have these conversations. I cold emailed or messaged on LinkedIn marketing director from Yeti, and they're like, "Love what you're doing. I'll hook you up with our uh, nonprofit side of the house, people that are helping." I talked to them and they're like, "Look, man, we love what you're doing. We got to figure out how to help, but you've got to prove yourself first." And that's fair, right? Like, I get it. You just don't. It's hard to ask people for money without kind of a history, right? A track record, because
Right.
if they just write a check and you don't do anything, they've just lost the check, right? So I'm like, that's fair. And so we're out. I mean, I'm blessed with a wife that allows me to do this stuff and follow all my crazy ideas. We as a family have funded 95% of this. The trailer, we just purchased a truck to pull this trailer with, all the kitchen equipment. And we've been very blessed. We've raised a lot of money through colleagues and friends. We had a local pizza place hook us up with, I don't know, $3,500 or something. Again, they did a fundraiser, and the person that they were doing the fundraiser with quit helping. And I get an email from, we go eat there every week. I get an email from the owner. It's like, "Hey man, we did a fundraiser. These people quit. I got a check for you. Come get it." Again, just things that you can't tell me it's coincidence, right? And
Right.
so I've been a Motorola partner for 25 years. So I'm working with Motorola, the company that I sold my company to. Mobile Communications America is the largest Motorola partner on the planet. They do grants every year, so I'm working with those teams to get grants, and it's like any other business. It's a business that nobody knows about, that nobody cares about, that nobody's looking for, and it's 100% outreach. And so, again, we have found talking to people is what makes the difference. I've mailed 20,000 letters and postcards and have gotten very little response for it. But when I get in front of people and talk about it, that's when, it clicks. It's real then. It's not junk mail. It's not particularly, somebody thinking it's a scam or something like that. You really connect with folks. And again, that's where we have found the biker community has really, really stepped up. All the Harley Davidson dealerships that I've talked to, they all want to help. They all want to participate on some level. And again, we're not asking for money. What it is for us, for those guys, is let us participate in your events. Let us show up at your bike nights. Let us show up at your special events. We can feed people. We can, do raffles. We can do whatever that looks like for you. And we want to bring value back to you and your organization. And everyone we've talked to has been so receptive. I mean, it's really been a cool experience.
I love that. Well, first, before we go any further, I want to thank you for still being here, because we sort of went right through that part of the story. But that's heavy. And I know that for a lot of people, that's a decision, that's a struggle that they don't talk about. And there's probably a lot of people who continue to struggle with that don't know where to turn, don't know who to talk to, don't think that that's a normal thing.
For sure. And I'm happy to tell anybody about it. Like, I'm not embarrassed by it. If it helps one person, I'm happy. And bro, I was at the gates of hell. Like, it got to me. I always thought suicide was selfish, right? Because the pain doesn't go away. What happens is you just transfer that pain. I would have transferred that pain to my wife and daughter. It got to the point for me where I understood why people killed their whole family. The pain stops. Like, that's how far down this path that I got, to where I understood that. And like I said, my wife and my little girl saved me. And it's funny. My wife, she's like, "What's going on with you?" And I'm like, I'd already written the note. I'd wrote her a letter about what to do with the houses and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm gonna kill myself. And she knew she couldn't stop me physically from getting around her or whatever. She just started praying, and she told me she's not before you talk to Ashlyn, who's our daughter. And my daughter comes downstairs, and I'm going through know your worth, always respect yourself, always be here for your mom, that kind of stuff. And she says, and at that time she was 13. She's like, "Michael," she calls me Michael. She says, "Michael, what's going on?" I'm like, "I'm just sad, buddy." She says, "That's okay. I get sad too, and I'll always be here for you." That was the moment that I started recovering. I look at it as an addiction like drugs or alcohol or something. I think you're always recovering. But I thought that if this 13-year-old could commit to me that she's always going to be here for me, I can't go any further than the bottom where I was at, and I would get through it. And so I tell everybody that I can about it. And from that moment, I've been agnostic my entire life. Um, and from January 21st of last year, like I've said several times, Jim, is the things that have happened, the conversations, the people that have been put in my path, there's no way it's coincidence. So
Yeah.
I jokingly tell people that I'm a little less agnostic right now, right? It's just like, and there's so many stories, like I've forgotten about them. Like I'll give you an example. I was traveling and I was in Paducah, Kentucky. I had dinner and went to the river and I was by myself and I'm sitting on a park bench and I'm just watching the river and the sun's going down. And this young man walks up to me. He says, "You're a pretty big boy. Do you do MMA?" I'm like, "Nah, man. I'm an old fat man. I don't MMA." He's like, "What about boxing?" I was like, "Look, I've always thought about boxing for exercise." He's like, "Well, I can make those dreams come true right now. Do you want to spar with me?" And I'm like, "That's a dangerous game, man. Like you're asking old men if they want to fight you. Like, and I wish, in hindsight, I wish I'd have asked the young man to sit down because he's like, "Man, I'm sorry for killing the vibe," and he walks off. And I wish I'd asked him to sit down and just talk to him because I feel like that person was put in my path, and I missed an opportunity to talk to that person about whatever it was or why they thought that it was appropriate to ask old Gen Xers just to fight them. And I've had situations like that. I'll give you one more example that I tell everybody about that I'm like, there's no way this is coincidence. So, as I mentioned earlier, I've been a Motorola partner for 25 years. And Motorola is big first responders. So, this fits into what they're doing. We show up, we feed first responders and volunteers and survivors and stuff like that. So, I reach out to a contact at Motorola and I'm like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. I would love for Motorola to participate. They've got a foundation and all that stuff." She's like, "I love the idea. We'll figure out a way to help out." And this was before Christmas, so in December sometime. And after Christmas, I follow up with her and I was like, "Hey, have you talked to Rosati?" That was who she was going to. She's like, "No, but I've got a meeting with him on Monday." I'm like, "Well, I'll be in Chicago with him on Monday also." She's like, "We'll double team him." We go to a Blackhawks game. I'm talking to him. He's like, "Dude, I love the idea. We'll figure this out." I get back home and I had emailed 100 reporters, news stations, all that stuff about, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a story with us?" I heard back from one of them, and it was in Columbia, South Carolina, about an hour and a half away, and it happened to be in the same town that John Rosati lives in. And so I emailed Rosati. I'm like, "Hey, dude, I'm going to be on the news tonight, WIS 10, if you want to check it out." That night, he's emailing me back. He has a national virtual town hall the next day. He's like, "Send me a QR code, build me a flyer." Like, you can't tell me that's coincidence. That all that stuff lined up in that one weekend. The one news station that called me back happened to be in this guy's backyard. I just don't believe it, man. So I don't know why I was called to do this. I can't wait to ask. I don't know why I was in the situation I was in January. Um, Maybe I don't know. Maybe it was to put me. I have no idea, man. But it's been nuts. I've learned so much. I've had so many people that have helped me along the way, and everybody's like, "Man, bless you for helping these people. God bless you." I'm blessed beyond measure. Like this is the me doing this is the blessing for me. Like I've said several times, it's medicine for my soul. Helping others is what drives me. I'm not motivated by money. I'm not motivated by any of that stuff. I want to be a good human. When I was a young man before I met my wife, when I was in high school, I was a piece of garbage, and I knew that I had to change if I wanted to keep her. We've been together for 31 years, and she taught me to be selfless and help others, and again, man, that's just what I love doing. So I keep telling her that I feel this calling. I feel like we're being guided. It's going to work. It has to work. It's too big not to. And so we'll really see the difference next month once we get our kitchen. Because we're working with our church to feed the community night, to raise awareness, do some fundraising. At that point, we'll get the local media involved. We've got Harley Davidson dealership I talked to the other day down in Columbia, and they're like, "Hey, man, we love the idea." I'm like, "Can we participate at one of your events?" And they're like, "We're going to create an event for you. It's going to be a customer appreciation. Let you come in with your kitchen, feed people." That's where the news station was at. We'll get those guys up there, and again, just raising awareness, be out there, and then we can respond again to the fires and hurricanes and things like that. But yeah, it's been tremendous, man.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a couple things from that I'd love to touch on. Number one is how much reward happens after you take the first step and show up, right? And I think there's a common theme in everything I'm hearing from you is you took the initiative to show up first, whether that was having the conversation to your daughter and just to say, hey, this is where I'm at, and then she showed up for you. And, over and over again in the stories that you're sharing, again, I just keep hearing you showing up first and taking that first step in faith and saying, hey, here's where I'm at. And I may not have a lot, but whatever I have, I'll be open-handed and give. And it keeps coming back to you tenfold. And I think there's another interesting perspective too, to go back to the story of, you sitting on the bench and the guy shows up. I think for a lot of us, we wonder, hey, why do these situations happen in our lives? And we may never know the answer. We may never know the answer. We may not know the answer for another 15 years. But there's also the reverse. And I think it's important to consider too, is, hey, maybe why were you in that guy's story? Why were you sitting in that chair that day and you happened to be there? Hey, maybe he was looking for a fight because he wanted to just find a way to end his day. Whatever it is, we never know, right? But you happened to be there and just said, "Nah, man, I'm not going to do that." And maybe, I'm not saying this is the case, but maybe you happened to just be there that day and you showed up and happened to change the course of his life by just being there how you were, right? And we may not never know this answer, and that can be really frustrating. But again, I think it just emphasizes the fact that, hey, if we show up and we just continue to go first and be present in these situations and lead with heart, lead with love, be open-handed with what we have, right, miracles happen. And I think there are no coincidences. And for us to start paying attention to these things and picking up the signs, we can start to look back and piece together this puzzle that eventually we will understand, hey, why were we put here? What is the purpose that we were put on this earth to fulfill? And as long as we continue to pursue that and show up and give what we have, more is given to us, right? Because we know that we can be trusted. We can be trusted to give out when we are given to. Right? So it's not a gift that's given to us, but a gift given through us. And every part of your story when you're sharing, hey, how are you showing up and continuing to find new ways to be less about you, right? None of this is about, hey, how can we make Michael Johnson the coolest, most awesome person in the world? It's like, hey, how can I be used to help the people around me? What can I do? What position can I put myself in to be a vessel to help the people around me? And I think it's amazing. It's honorable. And, I, for one, really, truly appreciate that you continue to do that and show up, because I know it's not easy, right? I know there's probably a ton of times when you've got your own life struggles going on. You're like, man, I can barely take care of myself. How am I supposed to take care of, an entire state worth of people by myself? And it's a struggle. But, I want to publicly thank you for doing that, because it means a lot.
Yeah, man. No, thanks. And it's just, and I think what happens is, again, I've been very selfless since I met my wife, and that comes from her, and she taught me. And I know very selfish people, right? And the selfish people I know are just miserable. And for me, I love just giving back and helping others, help lift others up. And I think the more we talk about this, the more people I meet at these events and things like this, like as you said, they may not volunteer with us, they may not work with us, but it may just trigger a thought in their mind to reach out to somebody they know that's struggling. Maybe they go donate some clothes. So who knows? I don't know what that looks like, but yeah, man, it's just impact. The CEO from out the company that I sold mine to that works with me, he sent me a book called The Gift of Influence, which was I thought was very interesting. But it just comes from, it's just another level of leadership, right? Is just show up and help, and everybody tries to do things and make it perfect, right? Like if I'd have waited to have the kitchen and to do this, we'd have never gotten anywhere, right? It was just, we showed up and found that passion. And fortunately, I've got a family that allows me to chase this thing, and they're with me, right? I mean, they're they're with me at the bike nights trying to raise awareness, and they travel with me. And, when we go to Sturgis, I mean, it's the last 10 days of my daughter's summer break, but like I'm looking at us driving across the country together and seeing parts of the country she's never seen before, having this experience that she's never had, and then also letting her see the good that's coming back from this community that has a bad reputation, right? There's bad apples everywhere, but we get in this community, and we were fundraising to help others, and she'll learn that lesson, and hopefully she'll carry it on, whether it's through her the rest of her high school career, college, on into adulthood after I'm long gone.
Yeah. No, I think it's important for people to experience that, right? Because that's when she starts to really pick up on these lessons. Like you said, a lot of people get this negative perception of their neighbor,
Sure.
right? No matter what it is, because a lot of times you just kind of look over the fence and make some assumptions about how they live, or, why they do what they do. And you tend to personalize and think, hey, they're doing this because they dislike me, or they're just bad people. And when you sit down and have that conversation and be like, oh, it had nothing to do with me in the first place, but you start to understand and kind of give that person a little bit of grace and space, you learn a lot. And I think that, what you're doing by exposing people to the real heart and generosity of their neighbors is a beautiful thing.
Well, and when you learn, like the things that what I learned through my journey, again back to the suicide stuff, was the things that affected me once I started breaking it down. Because when I looked at it, I thought it was just normal, right? This was my childhood; it was normal, and I started seeing a therapist years ago, and they start with mom questions. Like, I don't have mommy issues. I had a great childhood. As I start really reflecting, it was childhood crap that bothered me, and I was blaming it on my wife. Like, and I'll give you an example. So I'd tell my wife, I was like, I feel like I'm never number one. The dog's number one, the neighbor's number one. There's something always in front of me. And she's like, Michael, that's stupid. That's just not accurate. And where that comes from was at childhood, my mother chose drugs over me. My mother chose her boyfriend over me. When I went to live with my dad, his stepkids all got lunch money, and my brother and I didn't. That's where that crap came from. It had nothing to do with my wife. And then it took me a long time to realize that also, did it have nothing to do with my wife? It had absolutely nothing to do with me. It was them. They made those decisions, right? And you internalize that, and you blame yourself for these things, or what could I have done differently? And you have to look at those things for what they are to help you heal and get beyond them. And my wife and I both, we were talking one day as I was going through this, and I was like, the trauma stops with us, right? We're not passing this stuff along to our kid, which comes back to going out and showing her. And she loves helping and giving back. And we've always done it even before this, whether it was my wife going out and purchasing for 17 or 18 school kids at Christmas time, or volunteering with at-risk kids, mentoring those guys. And I hate that term at risk, but that's what I was, raised in the project, single mother. I could remember thinking about, you get to a fork in the road. What am I going to do? I'm going to go work a 9 to 5 and not make the money to survive on, or I'm going to go sell drugs. Well, I took this path, right? I went we're going to work the 9 to 5, and I finally met a mentor that changed my life. And, so just teaching her those things, and how important people are, and how important just strangers are. And, you receive the energy you give and stuff like that. So it's been a 180 from where I was as a child, but I've learned so much. It's been a great journey. Chris had hooked us up. Chris used to work for me years ago, and I couldn't be more proud of what he's doing right now. He and I text at least weekly. But like those people that are in our lives that just get placed there for who knows why. But I cherish all those friendships and relationships.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think, it's what you said about the relationship with your wife, and how that was kind of a reflection of, things that happened earlier in your life. I think that that's a very real thing that most people don't take the time to unpack and understand. And we think, hey, I'm not that bad, I don't need therapy, or I'll, find a way to carry on. Man, I would advocate therapy for literally everybody. And it doesn't mean that you're broken, doesn't mean that you're a bad person, or you need to be quote unquote fixed. It's a way to help put things in perspective, to better understand, hey, where am I at and why? You don't necessarily need to blame your parents. You don't need to blame anybody else. The blame part doesn't really fix anything, doesn't help. But just to better yourself and to be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be, why would you rob yourself of that?
Yeah, I agree.
And take the opportunity and learn.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the word broken. Through this whole process, and again, my wife, but the biggest challenge for me was getting on meds. Because in my mind, if I go down the med path, it just means you're broken. It just validates that you're broken. And it was the wrong way to think, right? Instead of thinking about what really is going on is you've got a chemical imbalance that just needs to be addressed, right? And meds have been a huge help for me. They balance me out. They help me. And again, that was my wife and talking to other friends, right? I'm very, very vocal about what I've been through. And I've talked to friends who they're like, man, I felt the same way when it came to getting, on antidepressants or whatever. And it's really helped. You should really look into it, and don't let that stigma, that thought process stop you from moving forward. And again, I'm a Gen X guy. I'm an old man. I'll be 50 in May. And for us, you don't show emotion. That means you're weak, right? You're the protector, the provider. You just eat all this stuff, and suck it up. And at some point, man, you can do that for a while, but at some point it boils to the top and it's got to come out. So you'd be much better served to work with someone and just let it out and let it out and let it out and learn how to deal with and accept. And again, for me, one of them is just helping others. That's where I find peace.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing. How can more people serve? Like, what does the structure of this look like? As far as, is it just in the Carolinas, or is there an option to serve in New York and California? Like, what does this look like structurally?
Yeah, so for us, we want to serve people that we can get to. So which is really kind of tornado and hurricane alley. I think us loading trucks and trailers and headed to California doesn't make sense. I think for us, what we would want to do in that scenario is if we have volunteers in California, let's connect them with people in California that are working. And if we have partners like Operation Barbecue Relief that I'd mentioned earlier that went to California, we can help them financially. I mean, to me, that makes more sense. The $5,000 it would take for us to drive across country would be better served buying food there than having one other person show up. But for us, it's really kind of, like I said, Texas east up Virginia, Ohio, just that hurricane alley. We're certainly looking for volunteers all over the country because if something happens and we can bring value, we want to go wherever we can. The big thing is volunteers. Of course, fundraising is huge. When you're feeding people, you have to have money to do that. We don't have the relationships with corporate America for those large donors. So this is all grassroots, which is fun too, right? Like it's a different story. You learn a lot from it. But volunteers are the huge thing, and we've got it set up on our website, which is helpafterdisaster.org, to volunteer, to donate, to get in these raffles. If you're in the state of South Carolina, we've partnered with people that are giving trucks away and motorcycles and stuff like that. I mean, we got lots of partners. Black Rifle Coffee, we're an affiliate for them. There's lots and lots of ways to support. But again, just sign up for the newsletter, right? Just to see where we're at, what's going on, and the things that are happening, and just be part of the community. And that's what I'm enjoying, is just getting to meet and interact with people that would have never crossed my path before, and sharing what it is we're doing, no matter how simple it is. Before we got on, I put a post on LinkedIn about today. I got a letter from the Secretary of State of South Dakota about being able to do raffles. That thrilled me to death, man. I'm high-fiving myself in here because that is a big thing for me. So it's been fun, but that's really what we need, is help with volunteers, fundraising, things like that, and partners, right? If we got folks that's got a business and they want to host feed the community night, and we can go out and do that, or a church. That's the other thing we're doing with churches, like our church. We're going to do a feed the community, to where Help After Disaster is going to buy all the food. We're going to show up. We're going to feed everybody. We're going to ask for donations. We're not going to charge for food. We're going to ask for donations, and then we're going to split the proceeds, any net proceeds, with our local church for their children's trip this summer, right? So we're looking for all those different partners and looking at doing things differently, right? We want to bring value to these relationships and not just ask and ask or take and take, but to bring value
Right.
back to them.
Yeah. Which makes a lot of sense. And I think, to what you said before about people volunteering and signing up for the newsletter, it doesn't necessarily matter if you live in New York or California. You might know somebody who knows someone who can help in wherever, right? So for all of us to just show up with what we have, not worry about, oh, I don't have X, Y, and Z, and let that be a pre-qualifier that you're not able to help. Let's show up. Let's start having this conversation on a bigger scale. And I think the dots will start to connect themselves if we continue to show up. I think that's been a pretty common theme.
Yeah, man, and they will, right? Like you don't have to do anything. Maybe you work for somebody and like, man, this fits in kind of what they're doing, and they do grants or I mean, there's lots of ways to help by just saying, hey, here's someone you need to talk to. I think it'd be beneficial for you. That's huge. I mean, to me, that's worth more than money, anyways, right? It's the same thing that Chris did to introduce the two of us. Was I was telling him about what we're doing. He's like, I got a buddy, Jim. You need to get on this podcast. So that's how we got started there. So all those things, I mean, they're just as valuable. It's not just about money. We need money, but the connections and the, hey, we've done this before, it worked, or we've done this before and it didn't work. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you've got something that can bring value to our organization that could help out, I'm all ears. I would love to be able to talk to folks about their successes, their failures in business, nonprofits. And then again, with just, hey, we would love to help, or, Facebook, my birthday stuff, right? That we always see. There's tons and tons of way to help. And we've been very, very blessed with folks helping and the opportunities that have come to us.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you've got my full support, and any way that we can help support and or share the message, I am more than happy to do so. So I will definitely be sure and share the link to the website in the show notes. And I think separately, you and I should probably have a conversation because I have some ideas in ways I would love to contribute as well. We'll definitely make that happen.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, man. Thanks, dude.
Tremendous. Thank you.
All right, my friend. Take care.